Hi guys, this is Bill from Spencer1984.com with another update to the eX-Driver Caterham Super 7. So I've started in on some of the body modifications, and I've done some prep work for a few more. And starting with a look at the hood, I've got the opening cut out for the intake, and then on the other side you can see there's still a little bit of a bulge on the inside of the hood. That used to be a bulge on the outside as well, but I've got that cut down and smoothed off. And I've got my guidelines drawn on for the louvers. Take a look at the Caterham hood. That has all three rows, but I'm only going to be using these two, not that one. And I think it's going to be easier for me to add them to the plastic hood than to shave it off this resin one. And for the louvers themselves, I'm going to be using some resin printed surface details from Archer. And taking a quick look, looks like that size right there ought to be pretty close to what's cast into the Caterham hood. So I'm going to get these installed real quick. And that's what it looks like. I've used these before on some other projects, some builds on this channel as well as some other stuff. And I'm always impressed by how good they look once they're in place. So that's it for the hood. Now onto the body. I've got the front fenders shaved off, and this side's pretty clean. If you didn't know that they were there originally, there's basically no sign of them now. This side wasn't quite as clean. I had to do a little bit of fill there where it took a chunk out of the plastic, taking the fenders off. Not too bad. Now going around to the back. Did the same thing where I cut off the rear fenders right along the body, and I did have to add a little bit of a fillet there on both sides, and then I just gave a really quick skim coat and sanding to get the lines off the 3D printed parts. So I'm going to throw some primer on, see how that looks. And overall, not too bad. Need to do a little bit of cleanup here and there, but for the most part, that's looking pretty decent. I think giving this a light wet sanding before color coat, and that should be plenty for it. The hood, also looking pretty good, and you can see how those louvers turned out. And again, I think those just look neat. And as long as I was at it, painted the nose, and kind of a rough idea of what the Caterham is going to look like. And among the paint, I also did a little bit of work on the engine. So this is actually the block out of the Lotus Europa kit. I had a second one that I picked up when I damaged the body on the first one. And these are the engine mounts from the Lotus 7 kit, but otherwise the rest of it is straight out of the Europa because it's got the dual overhead cam setup. And other than the much bigger head, the overall proportions are actually pretty close to the stock engine. So it fits in here without a whole lot of headache. I'll go right about there. And for the transmission, I'm going to be using the stock transmission out of the Lotus 7. Because you can't really see a whole lot of it once the car is assembled. Get the engine out here. It actually goes in this tunnel, and then most of it's gone, but that's going to serve as a locator for the engine up here like that, and that's also going to help line up the rear suspension and drivetrain and all that. So I figured it was smart to keep that. And yeah, so that's about where things are right now. Body is going to be ready for color coat after I give it the light wet sanding. Engine is underway, get some paint on that, and then it'll be time to start in on the suspension interior. So I will have another update for you next week. You can check back then, and thanks for watching.